I grew up a young farm boy in northwest Iowa. Both my parents were hardworking farm parents. On those cold winter evenings, we'd listen to the radio, and that's when my interest in broadcasting began. By the time I got to high school, we had moved to Bellevue, Nebraska, and during my high school years, the Russians had put up Sputnik. They encouraged all of us to go on from high school into college because they felt we were falling behind the Russians. So I went to the University of Nebraska to study radio and television. I got a job at KLMS Radio, and of course, being a radio and television major, I was in the Temple building where KUON TV was, and there I met an early mentor named Ron Hall.
It was back in 1959 when Ken walked into our studio in the Temple building. He wanted to know and do everything. His first job directing was a new math class featuring Dorcas Cavett, Dick's stepmom. Ken had two of the basic Nebraska traits: honesty and willingness to work hard.
I shortly left KLMS Radio and went over to KLIN Radio as a weekend disc jockey and met Bob Zenner, who recommended I give up the idea of being a disc jockey and get into television instead. I applied at Channel 10, KOLN TV, and landed a job on as a stagehand and worked for them for the next 3.5 years in various positions. Met Bill Hemke, who recommended I try directing. It was love at first sight. I graduated from college in 1964. Moved on to Ames, Iowa for a short time, Detroit, Michigan for a short time, landed in Cincinnati in 1967 to direct coverage of the Cincinnati Reds games on television. And lo and behold, the Cincinnati Reds became the Big Red Machine with people like Johnny Bench.
I met Ken Fouts back in early 70s when the Big Red Machine first started. That may have been his big break. And of course, my big break was he did my Johnny Bench MVP show. What innovation, what a dedicated and just a great individual. Couldn't happen to a nicer man. I mean, he was so involved. He loved every part of the Big Red Machine and also the broadcasting industry.
Doing the Johnny Bench show in the summer of 1971 led me into the opportunity to do the Joe Namath show that fall during the football season. And during that season, Joe and I made a bet on the upcoming Orange Bowl, which was going to be between his alma mater, Alabama, and of course my alma mater, the Cornhuskers. Cornhuskers won 38-6, and Joe still owes me $25, and I like it that way. I began a great relationship with NBC at that time. Even though I was working for the local station, Paul Brown had started the Cincinnati Bengals, and so I was doing NFL football for NBC on a freelance basis. And that all continued to increase as the years went by until in 1974, NBC asked me to join them and do their golf coverage, which meant, of course, I had to leave the local station, and I signed a contract with NBC. And it's interesting for me that I graduated from college in 1964, and in 1974, I was under contract to a network in New York to do sports coverage. When I joined NBC, not only did I do baseball, Saturday game of the week, with people like Kurt Gowdy, Tony Kubek, Joe Garagiola, Maury Wills, Sandy Koufax, and on. I also did NFL football. There I worked with Merlin Olsen, John Brody, Len Dawson, and many, many athletes that I found to be just absolutely wonderful to work with as a director. I also did tennis, and I was in the era of Arthur Ashe and Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe. I did boxing with Ken Norton, Muhammad Ali, did golf, and of course with golf, we went to the Bob Hope Desert Classic, had the opportunity to work with Bob Hope a few times, and worked with Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, and of course covered Lee Trevino and Gary Player and Johnny Miller. And my years at NBC were wonderful. It was the highlight of my life. It was a dream come true. I was then later paired with a young producer by the name of Mike Weissman, as we were preparing for the 1980 Olympics.
Ken Fouts is one of the most important directors in TV sports history, and he's one of just a handful of people who are involved in the direction of both the World Series and the Super Bowl. I had the pleasure of traveling with Ken to some of the great cities in the world: Rome, Paris, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, But Ken was never happier than when we got assigned to do the Junior Olympics. Where was it held? His favorite, Lincoln, Nebraska. He got to wear his cowboy hat and his cowboy boots, and Ken was one happy camper.
Michael Weissman and I were teamed with Merlin Olsen and Dick Enberg for a couple of years doing NFL football at NBC, and we did some great NFL football games. We were also teamed to do the closing ceremonies and track and field at the 1980 Olympics in Moscow. President Jimmy Carter decided to boycott those Olympics. All the Olympians were extremely disappointed, and we at NBC Sports were also very, very disappointed.
In 1976, NBC Television Network introduced with great fanfare their new logo. The only problem was, it was our logo at NET, and it had already been used nationally. When we decided to sue NBC, we were besieged by calls from the national media. And one call I still treasure was Ken's call from his fifth floor office of NBC in Rockefeller Center in New York. And he said, "Ron, everyone here at NBC Sports is on your side." Thanks, Ken.
Hi, this is Marilyn Altman from NBC Sports from many years ago, and I was a technical director for Ken Fouts in the 80s. He is, or was, and still is, a wonderful director. It was most fun working with him, and not only was he great to work with, knew his sport, he was also very kind. I wish him such congratulations on this wonderful honor. Good luck, Ken.
Hello, this is for Ken Fouts. And I heard a couple of weeks ago he got inducted, not just nominated, into the Nebraska Broadcasters Hall of Fame. And since I think I'm a pretty good friend of Kenny, and I've played golf with Kenny, and I've had many dinners with Kenny, and I've done a lot of sports with Kenny, I really think I should say something. But you know, it evades me what nice things I could say. No, I could say nice things. I've been pretty good at giving speeches, but I'm at a luncheon right now, and he knows I'm in here, and he said, don't get too verbose, like don't speak too much. I just want to congratulate Kenny because he's a good guy. I love the guy, I love his wife, and I hope he has a good life. And I'm so happy that Nebraska didn't put some corn stalks in there. But anyway, Kenny, congratulations from your good friend Larry Cirillo and Sandy. We are so happy that you got inducted. I'm sorry. Don't. But anyway, enjoy, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to say a few words for you. Bye.
Hi, Ken. I'm sure you remember me. I was a technical director for Ken Fouts for a lot of years. We did a lot of the major baseball and sporting events. Ken, you were the best. Your way of handling the crew, the respect that you got, the way you treated everyone was just the best. When I got my opportunity to be a director at NBC Sports, I emulated the way you treated the crew and spoke to people because everyone had love for you. All the best. I wish you the best in life. Congratulations.
Hi, Ken. I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it was to work with you on all those NBC Sports remotes. Whenever I saw that you were the producer, I knew we were going to have a good time. I know you think about my dad. He also enjoyed being with you. You were one of the kindest, most nice gentlemen I've ever met. Always gave everybody a fair chance. We always had a good time, and I'm so glad that you're being honored by the Nebraska Television Network. And if I screwed that up, Ken, you know, sometimes I can be a screw up, sometimes I can't. But all the best. I'm so happy for you. Thank you.
You know, they say the cream always rises to the top. How the hell did you get this award? Good for you, man. Great working with you, as you well know. Have a good one. Congrats.
Thank you very much. As a young video operator, TD, growing up, your guidance, sitting next to you on those times when I had the opportunity, It was an honor, it was a pleasure, and I have to say, the world was a wonderful environment to learn the world of sports, sitting next to you. Thank you.
Kenny Fouts, my gosh. I haven't seen him after this evening in years. One of the best guys, directors I ever worked with. In fact, back in the late 1960s, early 70s, Ken kind of broke the ice and was one of the first directors to do the game of the week and broke the ice when Harry Coyle, Teddy Nathanson were the big directors. Kenny fit right in. His home was Cincinnati. Everybody knew him. Everybody loved him. And we loved flying out of New York with the crew, and we would meet Kenny. He hasn't changed a bit. He's the same sweet, lovely guy. He was the kindest, gentlest person to all of his crew members. I can't think of a thing that I could say that I appreciated him more. He was just the most delightful guy to work with, and he was special in this industry. I've been in television. Started in NBC in 1963. I was a page on Johnny Carson's first show, and I retired in '68. I traveled and did sports with Kenny, the NBC sports team, for maybe 12, 15 years. Every weekend doing the game of the week, the baseball game of the week, and Saturday, Sunday football. And after a while, you wake up in the middle of the night and you say, what in the hell am I doing here? I should be home. And all that kind of wore off. Kenny stayed with it. We had so many good times together, so many dinners with so many friends. He was friends with Johnny Bench, all the Cincinnati ball players in those days. And every time we came to town, he took good care of us, and he was a damn good director. Harry Coyle was very proud of him, and he learned a lot from Harry, and he improved on Harry's procedure and direction of a baseball game. Thank you.
Hi, Ken. This is Steve Gonzalez. All I have to say is, God, I remember you. It was back in the 70s, my first remote. You directed, George Finkel producing. 3-camera game. That's right, a 3-camera game, Shea Stadium. I don't know if the Mets won. They probably lost. But anyway, I continued on for 34 years. Wow, what a career.
Hi, Ken. Bill Vaccaro. All the years, all the directors I've worked with over the years, I have to say that you're definitely one of the best, except for maybe, no, there is no maybe. You are the best. All the best to you. Congratulations.
Roone Arledge of ABC came along and offered me the opportunity to do the 1984 Olympics in Sarajevo and Los Angeles, and so I spent 4 years at ABC. At the end of that, a friend of mine, Don Ellis from NBC, had gone to Turner, and he called me and asked if I would head up coverage of the 1986 Goodwill Games in Moscow. I finally got my trip to Moscow. At the end of that, ESPN asked if I wouldn't come help them get ready to do Major League Baseball. And I joined them, and as a matter of fact, in 1990, did the very first Major League Baseball game ever on ESPN. At the end of 8 years with ESPN, Fox Sports Net asked me to do a primetime Saturday night Big 12 football game, and so I did that for 6 years, and that gave me the opportunity to come back to Memorial Stadium in Lincoln to see the difference from what it was when I was there in '64 and what it is today. At the end of my career, I was asked by RCA, or Thomson Electronics, to do some research and development on high definition and how it would affect sports coverage. I did the very first baseball game in high definition in 1997. In 1998, they asked me to do a 2-hour show around John Glenn returning to space on the shuttle in high definition.
Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery with a crew of 6 astronaut heroes and 1 American legend.
And I have to say, it was one of the most moving events of my entire career.
Roger roll, Discovery.
Yep, you got it.
Well, congratulations to Ken Fouts on his induction into the Nebraska Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And the class of 2019.